Okay, we're live. We'll call the meeting back on.
Okay.
Board circulation meeting here.
And we're on to 9.6. Information report prepared, infrastructure operations, possible funding options for church memorial park feasibility.
I'll jump in just to say that, so staff were tasked with following up on your request to find out what funding options might be out there to support the feasibility study. So this report is essentially the result of our inquiries with some of our colleagues. I reached out to colleagues at Community Culture, Tourism and Heritage who often oversee these kinds of grants. John spoke to folks at Canadian Federation of Canadian Municipalities, I believe. So the short version of the story here is that in terms of existing grant programs with funds dedicated to planning of this sort are few and far between, and the ones that are there don't have a lot of money in the pot. That's not to say that there's not money to support this kind of activity, but in terms of established dedicated funds, there's not a whole lot there. So very quickly, the planning assistance grant available through CCTH could assist with this. It has a limit of $10,000 on it, at 50% of the dollar for that matter. Anything above that threshold, it'd be wise for CMP to get in touch with Anna Hamster, who's the regional manager on the South Shore here. So there's a conversation that could be had here, but again, in terms of what's already dedicated to this kind of thing, probably not as supportive as the request is. And then secondly, through FCM, they do have a GHG reduction pathway feasibility study grant program. But as John has outlined here or highlighted, it's very much dedicated to greenhouse gas emission, energy reduction, and operational savings and longevity type activities, capital activities of that. There's a maximum of 65 there to cover 80% of eligible costs of the building. We did, I don't know which version of this, but John did get some kind of late breaking news from ACOA, I think. So he inserted that in here to say that there are no grant opportunities available through ACOA or other federal agencies. Again, dedicated, ready to go grant options. And I'll just add that we did, in course of our inquiries, receive a couple of similar feasibilities, or what I imagine would be similar feasibility studies from recent rec facilities that have been built across the province. I don't have permission to share those, but I'm guessing if CMP was requested those, we could get permission to share those as well, just to kind of provide a bit of a template. And I'm new to this conversation, so please forgive me if I'm assuming things, but if they haven't already seen some of those kinds of studies that have been done, just might be helpful to kind of frame up the scope of what council is looking for and CMP.
Well, that would give us some basic information on if you were to move forward with a new facility, this is what it would likely look at, this is likely what it would cost, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so good background.
Okay.
So sorry if you were hoping for better news, but I guess, I guess the question is there anything else that you would like us to follow up on, or?
Yeah. I mean, I already made my comments earlier this morning on I just think we need to take a broader look at some stage of the game on recreation facilities in a broad general sense. Having said that, I fully recognize and understand that we need to take a look at Church Memorial Park and determine the lifespan that does exist or doesn't exist with the current facility. And if it suggests that it's short, then you have to take a look at what would it mean if we were to move forward with a new facility. But having said that, I think $200,000 is a lot of money. And this is just me, I'm just speaking because I'm first to do it. And I think that's a lot of money from unbudgeted out of our pocket. And but I think we need to move forward with it at some sign. But I think that we need to be equal partners around the table, because I think it has impacts that are well beyond the current owners of the facility. It will impact the municipality in a broader sense, and I think therefore we should be significant players in trying to determine the process, the parameters of the study, and joint owners, I guess. But that's where I am.
I looked at what is the ask, 200,000, the ask. My understanding is to do a study of the rink and its condition and the lifespan of it. And then another part of it is a new rink. And I just think we should do the one study first. Well, that's my thought on the lifespan of the rink. Because if it goes back, the lifespan of that rink is another 34 years with a $5 million investment. That may be the way I would choose to go, so I would want to go all the way down the road before you find it. I guess plan A first before you want to do plan B, so that's.
But if it comes back and says that it doesn't, isn't going to last.
Then you have to do, you have to move forward.
Yeah. So providing $50,000 to do, and I said be equal partners and determine the outcomes.
I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead.
Well, you're the hand us off.
Sure, okay. So just to answer maybe that first question, that most immediate question then, that we work with Shepherds. For me, determining, and again, I'm not on the committee, I'm not as intimately involved as say Council Church and others. But for me, when I look back at the presentation that took place on the 29th, and even more so weighted now is the presentation that we just received from the recreation professionals, Gord and Jed, and some of the points that came out of that in terms of, I might think I know what my community wants, but that's when we get in trouble, right? So, so to answer that question, Floyd, to me, it's not necessarily just a first and a second, it's determining what the community wants, what the community needs, what the community wants, what do people want to see, what can't they do that they want to do, what's going to feed into some of those statements that came out of the presentation just 20 minutes ago. In Gord opened, I think, second or third point in, increasing the physical activity levels of people of all ages and all levels of ability to do so. And we all know that physical activity isn't just hockey and pickleball and curling, whatever else. We all know that now. What do people want in the community? I'm going to just reiterate and repeat some of the statements that were made 20 minutes ago. What do people want? What do people need in the community? What do people want to do? And what do they need to have in place in which to do this in the community in which they live? Recreation is more than physical activity. We talked about, and I'm glad that Councillor Wells and Councillor Reno mentioned around programming and diversity and arts and culture and et cetera. Yes, Andre, you might not have mentioned diversity, but you did mention arts and culture, and someone else mentioned diversity and so on. So I knew that, okay, I could tell from that body language you were going to say that you didn't say that, but.
You mentioned different names too.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
You didn't have to own it all.
Yeah, that's right. And the field of recreation has changed immensely in the last X number of years. And for me, again, it's important to know with certainty what the community wants to see. What needs do they have? What wants do they have? These are all things that we had said, quality of life, lifestyle. How can we improve the quality of life of our residents? And going even further back on the agenda, when we talked about green, in terms of what I was familiar with, in terms of site selection and attracting business, I'm really old though, so I go way back. This may not be the place. It may not still be the placeholder, but within the top 3 for site selectors, for business attraction was recreation facilities. And I don't mind if you want to correct me and say it's now number 10, I don't know, right? But that's when we were looking at HB Studios and we attracted them as the RDA top 3 of site selectors to attract businesses to any community recreation facilities. So this feasibility study, and in their slides, they say, why do we want a feasibility study? To access an independent professional assessment to answer 2 questions. Should our community plan to build a new sports and recreation? Should our community plan to build a new sports and recreation facility or renovate and maintain existing facility? So that's an or in there. It's not finding out just simply, does our existing facility have a longevity, an age of 30 years?
If I can just.
Sure.
Just for a second.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't ask, is it the most Is it the biggest priority for you in terms of your recreation, or is it not?
Well, I think that they're talking about
Is there
community engagement in the,
But their engagement on whether to build a new facility or renovate, it's not on whether that is the biggest priority in terms of the community's desires.
that's with the community engagement of the feasibility study would be.
That would be much broader than what they're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say I fully support, the ask, but I know the board needs to know whether they should invest more in the old facility. Maybe a facelift on the old facility would do a lot. I know some communities do that. They invest, as Floyd said, 5 million and fix it up and everybody's happy. Or, do they go the other road, down the road and build a new facility? I mean, I don't know, these feasibility studies, I don't know how much you can engage the community. Are they gonna do that to find out what the community wants? I mean, that's I think part B, but ideally, it would be nice to know.
Yeah, and I hate to keep on it, but I get it. I want to know myself whether it's worth investing in that facility or whether it's not. And then I do want to know, if it's not, what does it mean to us as a municipality if we move forward with a new one? But when I come to all those conclusions, I also want some other facts, like number of users, facilities within the region, all that kind of stuff I'm gonna want to know. But I think the first thing I need to know is whether it's worth wasting any more money on that one or not.
And I think doing the feasibility study should answer that and give information that we need, because we're just guessing. I don't know.
We're guessing.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know I'd like to know what the community wants, but I'm not really sure. Is having a fancy new facility a priority, and if which case, how is the community gonna pay for it? That's the whole thing in operating,
Lots of stuff, yeah.
and
We gotta start something, I'll grant you that.
If anybody else wants to.
I didn't see any other hand up, just yet.
Thank you. So I'm trying to think back, probably part of what I should have done was gone back and looked at the live stream of the 29th. So I'm gonna just look to everybody else here at the table too, to together maybe you can remind me of what took place. So I'm thinking back, and I think that the presenter said to us that reaching out to some of those other communities, other newly constructed within the last decade, facilities. Through discussions, they had determined that an extensive consultation and an extensive community engagement and assessment and extensive, up the yin-yang, that we'd be looking at, or you as a board would be looking at 100 to 200,000 to do such a study in the indicators of what they included when they were here on the 29th. Again, community consultation, what are the pieces of the existing building that we need to talk about, what might a new building look like, where might it be located, what are the partners, what are all these opportunities. So I think that's what I was recalling from the presentation, that they had done their due diligence and gone and had conversations with other communities, other rec managers, municipal units maybe. I'm not thinking, but we were all here on the 29th, so what's everyone remembering?
It doesn't matter what I remember, I'm just stating where I am now after thinking about it.
And what was the information that you would like to receive that you can get if you ask for it? Give us a little more detail on that.
Yeah, it was a new facility in the valley, a new facility in the Highland region, I think. So I forget exactly which ones, but they were sent to me as part of this inquiry. I haven't asked if I can share those more broadly. That's all I'm flagging here, but I'm expecting it's not an issue because they were sent.
If we were to ask for a form.
Yeah, I would just keep my colleagues happy with
To have that?
Of course it would.
Very likely, yeah. Again, just from a scoping standpoint, like what kind of questions were asked in those studies, what were the answers, and how could that inform what these questions are here? That's all, to help you then think about the parameters that you might set around.
They they were building new rinks in both those locations where they're at.
Yeah, multi-use facilities.
Yeah.
So the question, and it does all get down to scope, right? So in those other instances, if it was just a new facility, you know, they perhaps weren't considering an older facility and whether they were gonna, you know, renovate or consider, you know, changes to an existing facility versus just building new. So, so some feasibility studies may not be exactly comparable to the situation that we have, but a feasibility study regardless is probably
Do we know what those cost?
feasibility studies. Well, it depends on the scope. So I think at the presentation, the estimate and talking with, and doing this, because the folks at Churchmont Park, they have been doing their homework and they have been talking with lots of other folks. So I think based on, from the presentation, based on the conversation that they've been having, that was the estimate. The scope of that type of a feasibility study would be in that range of 100 to 200, my understanding from those discussions. So if you had a very narrow scope, obviously the price would be much less. If your scope is more broad, then you're getting into more work that consultant would have to do to produce the results that you're looking for.
The answers to your questions are knowable. But staff had a very specific question that we're asked to answer here, so I just didn't want to go beyond in our inquiry, stepping over the bounds of what you were asking us to do and what others were willing to provide to us. But we can go there if that's what you ask us to do.
Well, I think it's useful information. It wouldn't hurt us. I think we have to do something. I'm trying, sort of, if not so.
So, so thinking back on the initial presentation, the first part was discussing the damage that to the roof and the countermeasure that the engineers had come up with to reinforce the roof. And I don't remember the exact figure, but there was some sort of figure that some sort of projection of how long those repairs would sustain the building. You know, it could be, I don't remember, 15, 20 years, whatever it was. It was
25.
25 years. Okay. So that addresses the question of urgency. I presume, I'm not sure that you need a study, then, because that's what presumably their engineering report would provide. That's why they're undertaking the work. They've already assessed something. They've agreed this is the correct course of action. Now they're going to implement the recommendations of that study. There's nothing really to study there, I don't see. So if we move that away, then the second issue is, do we want, is this the correct facility for our area? It's a separate problem. This urgency is gone. The roof isn't going to collapse next year, presumably. If they've done their job and those that are carrying out the work and the analysis are confident, which they seem confident in their abilities as experts. So if we're going to build a new facility to meet other needs other than what we're doing now, do we renovate or do we build new? Well, I mean, I guess we could go to some independent person and ask them if they think that we should build new or renovate a building that was designed probably in the late 50s or early, maybe 1960 or so. The first, it was opened in 67, so presumably it would take a number of years before that to design it. The first building code in Canada was in 1960, and we didn't have it here. So I know professionally, I probably wouldn't want to try to renovate and put a public building on the side or as part of a building that was an antique. You can see that would create a whole lot of problems that I wouldn't want to undertake as compared with building new. It seems like asking that question is, I don't know what consultant would come back and say, yes, you're going to expand the use. It's going to change the envelope of the building because we're already at the, the rink. The walls aren't far from the actual surface of the ice. So any change in use is gonna mean a change in the envelope. So as soon as you touch that envelope, you're touching something that was designed without a building code. And we need a professional to come back and explain to us that it's probably not a good idea, really.
We might not have to look at much, but I'm just saying that for $100,000, we should be able to start this process. Time is not of the essence exactly, because we already know that the lifespan is, well, if you, like you just said, 25 years. I don't know that that's the case, but I just don't think that we have to unbudget $200,000 when we can start a process, I think, for $100,000, get a better handle on where it is we're going, what it is we're doing, what it is the community wants, and not only is it a rink, but in that broad general sense of
I
recreation.
guess I just feel like if we want to pare down the scope, that's an obvious, I believe, an obvious place to do it. You know, really what we're talking about is should we have a twin pad rink? There should be space for other uses, you know, if you're looking at, like, if they're two completely different studies, if you're looking at the old building to see if it can be renovated, you know, then you need, you know, engineers and architects and stuff like that. That's a different study completely than going and surveying the community and say, what do you need here?
Okay.
You know, one's very technical, the other one's more like a philosophical, almost like what it is that we want in our community.
Yeah.
So if that's what we want to do, then let's do that. Don't try to do both, because that's why it costs so much.
Yeah.
Because they're completely different studies.
Refresh my memory though, Andre, was the study they gave us just on roof structure, or was it on the facility in a general broad sense? General broad sense,
No, roof.
just roof. Well, see, that's the part that I
Well,
don't.
why would we study that? They're just fixing it now.
Well, it's not the roof, but I mean, it's the ice surface, it's everything. Yeah.
But there have been studies done from other companies in the Cherry Memorial Park have it
I
on
can't
file
remember everything.
that, you know, that they felt the building was sound, but this is like more information. I guess they need to know whether, should they invest, you know, it could be 2-3 more million in the building, maybe
Or
more.
not, yeah.
Or is it kind of like it's a sinking ship? And don't do that, you know, invest in a new facility.
Well, even if we do though, it's gonna take years, so you're
They
going,
recognize that if we have
Yeah.
presentation.
so I think you do need to determine what the priorities in terms of fixing the old one are. Dell.
Are you finished? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I am finished. I'll go with my time.
I just, Andre shed a light on something that I sort of was thinking about, but I think that the focus of the feasibility study, as far as I'm concerned now after hearing Andre, is concentration. Look, we need a new building. I think that's pretty clear. With, you know, that there's the lifespan of the building. I mean, for me, to contribute municipality money to a refurbished, I just think it's throwing good money after bad. But having said that, what I would like to see in the feasibility study, and by the way, I'm in favor of the 100,000, is part of the scope going forward is actually a new facility, where it would be, what it would compose, what it would be, a multi-facility. And that's not gonna happen tomorrow. You have to go out into the community first, I would think. I mean, you can't, I mean, we've done studies before, and the studies come back and they haven't answered the questions. Like the fire department, the study. So it's something that you just can't do overnight. But I'm not in favor of, I mean, what are they gonna study in the feasibility study of the old rink? As Andre said, they've pretty much addressed those issues with the roof. As far as the ice, I mean, the ice is the ice. It's not gonna cave in. You know, I mean, you know, the roof is the big issue, and they're fixing that. So for me, the feasibility study, if I vote for it, will be based on the study for a new facility.
Well, yeah, whatever.
Oh, I think that's,
Oh, well, no, wait,
Sorry.
Andre had his hand up there, Floyd, then.
Why don't you jump in, Sharon, and then I'll.
Okay. If that's what you want, I'll just go.
I don't think kind of that was the intent of the board to say we're 100% want a new facility. I think they wanted all the answers to determine if it makes sense to be investing in the old facility. I mean, we gotta understand that taxpayers are going to be paying either way. A new facility, it might be, yes, capital might be raised and the facility is paid for, but then there's ongoing operations, and it may be such that it's more than I don't know, maybe more than a volunteer group can take on, and it might have to be part of the municipality, and therefore taxpayers will be paying it. That's when it comes back to us, that.
Someone just explain to me what they mean by investing in a new facility, because that's already happening. It's happening. I saw it on Facebook. It's happening. I ran by there this morning.
I don't know.
They were in there screwing and hounding and doing stuff inside the ring.
Well,
So,
they're working on the roof.
yeah, so is that the investment? What other investment? That's already happening. So what's this future investment we're discussing? Somebody explain to me, what is the investment that we have to study?
Well, there are board members who feel that it may make sense to not putting money into this old facility, but to build a new facility, because it might provide more opportunities for the community, maybe
Right, but I
with.
mean, what money are we putting into the facility? Somebody explain what it is that we're talking about. Explain. Are we talking about changing its purpose so that it has other amenities that it doesn't have now? Or are we just trying to just keep it going? What is it?
Well, there's thought from, some people that it would be nice to have a rink with let's say a walking track, maybe other amenities. I don't know what else you put in a rink, curling rink, more like an LCLC facility.
I'm confused, I'll be honest. I'm totally confused on what we want here. If we're talking about what the public wants, more things in and all that, we're talking about, I thought the question was, if our rink was perfect right now and didn't need any upgrade, would we be talking about?
We wouldn't even be at those.
Right, so that's why I said from the start, but can I finish, please? What I'd like to know is that rink serviceable to the public the way it's been for the last 30 or 40 years for another 20 or 25 years? That's the question I need to answer first. We're talking about, we're talking about walking track, so in addition to the old wing is not even on my, we didn't go to the public, I didn't hear that from the public. All I heard was a rink that's getting older, it may be able to serve for 20 years, I don't know if it does, can or not, I really don't, you know. I don't think you do.
Well, their expert from whatever, the glue lamp expert that does projects all over the world is promising that this thing's gonna have some long lifetime.
Well, maybe
I saw that, I heard that.
maybe all they have to do is update that study as part of what we're doing, give them.
And if they do that, and that rink is here for another 20 years, then if we want to get 20 years, we want to build a new rink, but the public wants them to it, and where the money's coming from, I don't see where the big issue is here, personally.
Okay, are you next? I can't remember.
Well, I don't know, I kind of burst in on the conversation, so maybe it's Tina's turn. though.
I don't.
Why don't George join now?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Listening.
I appreciate everyone's comments, and I'm not clear. I'm clear on some parts. I'm clear that I'm old, and I'm clear that this building is very traditional. And I'm fearful of what I'm not doing to look ahead. I'm fearful for what I'm not doing to think about all ages, all abilities, and what I'm not thinking about that might even take place there in terms of programming and opportunities. And just listening to Gordon Chad again now, 40 minutes ago, right? Not 20 minutes ago, but 40 minutes ago in terms of their presentation. So that makes me fearful of what I don't know. So that's why I do look to the expertise and the opportunity. And maybe this is an opportunity, and that if we weren't in the current situation, the building condition that we're in, from what I understand, I'm seeing it as an opportunity because, maybe if it was all tickety-boo, we'd be just, making sure that we put the taxpayer money in it and we continued on. But I'm seeing it now as an opportunity, not as a negative, right? Turn that around in my own head. But we also have somebody in the room that I didn't know was going to be here today, so I'm not going to say that I did. So she was here presenting on the 29th. We've allowed, I don't even know, I'm not looking at her. I don't know if she's willing to speak to us or, speak at the table or not. She may not be prepared. But we have all the time in the world, and we should allow time if Amanda would like to speak to us, because there are some questions that are popping up here
Yeah.
that we said we don't know. We don't know the board, we don't know. And so Sharon is here as well as Amanda. Could we extend an invitation if Amanda is willing to speak to?
I don't have any problem with that at all, but the chairman of the board maybe should be also present and talking to us about this
Sure.
kind of stuff. All I think from what I can hear around the table is that we all want to do something to help this move forward. The question is, do we really need a study to determine the lifespan and or is there enough information out there that people could provide to us? Just and then what if we already know, then taking a look at the new facility and what that would mean.
Was engineering carried out on the existing roof to remedy the failure?
Yes.
Okay, so that engineering presumably was to restore the performance of the roof to pre-damage condition, is that correct?
Yes.
So what would we be doing in a study? It's already been brought up to what it can be. What is the purpose of the study on the existing thing? The only thing you'd be studying is if you're going to try to renovate the building into something it's not now. Because at the end of this summer, it will be what it's been since 1967.
But that's what they asked, one of the asks are, so I agree with you, but that's what one of the asks are, renovate, maintain, the existing facility. That's one
We
of
don't
the
need a
asks.
study for that. They've already studied it, that's why they
Well, if
invested.
we already know it's good for another 25 years, what are we even talking about for?
I agree.
I'm not saying that we don't want to invest in a study to see if we want a facility that's different than the one we have now.
Yeah,
That's a different topic.
That's not $200,000.
If the community wants another.
Well, yeah,
type of
you
facility.
know.
Someone to pay for it.
Well, yeah.
Well, you gotta give them a cost estimate, what it means, not gonna
So
set
I
it
feel
now.
like we're muddying the water with whether the building's gonna last or not last. Like, what engineer would come and say, well, we're gonna do all these modifications to a building, but I don't expect it to last. Like,
Well,
that doesn't make
what
any
you're
sense.
telling me is the engineer said it's gonna last 25 years. Jared.
I don't know if we're making any progress.
Either.
I mean, there are rentals you can do to make that rink more comfortable. It's the coldest rink in the province, right? There is work they can
I live in
do.
a very small.
I don't think there's a colder one, or maybe I just get
Depends on
older.
the day.
Yeah,
But there are things you can do to improve it. There is the entranceway, putting a room upstairs like they have in Tantallon, which is warm for people to sit and watch and make it more comfortable. Ultimately, we're gonna need a new facility. I'd like to see the call for proposals. What are we gonna be asking? I mean, if we're gonna do a feasibility study, we're gonna go to the call for proposals.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need staff, our staff, and Church Moore Park to work together on this.
To do a call for proposals, bring it back to us.
That's what I'm.
And we're prepared to spend $100,000
Yeah,
if it makes sense.
and I
What are we
don't,
asking to do, build the rink?
No, call for proposals on what it is they're trying to determine. What do you need to know about the old rink? Because it's unclear to me.
I don't think we're there yet. I think we're all confused a little bit because we're all over the lot. We have to focus.
Yes, we need a scope of work. Yeah, what are you trying to accomplish?
Because if we do it, it would be a call for proposals. If the rink has the money, they wouldn't necessarily need to follow the same process that we would follow. But a scope of work would help potentially to identify what the study would look at.
And I think that would help to clarify the minds around the table of exactly what the feasibility study is. So if we.
So let's put a joint committee together, representatives from municipality, representatives from Church Mill Park, do a scope of work for us and bring it.
I don't disagree, but I got one other question. The waiting patiently. Where's the province on this?
There's no funds available for the study as we understand it. Now, when it comes to building the new facility or renovating the old facility, then there's probably our funds. Well, no,
So
Just clarify
just
that.
supplying us promises,
Sorry,
promises,
promises from the province?
just promises. Correct.
So just to clarify, any major ask over $10,000 as part of that planning assistance grant, you can make that request. It's just that's the parameters that are currently set. So it's not that the door is closed, but the ask has to be made.
So, in all fairness to the province and to the federal government, and Sharon speaks this much better, over the last number of decades, how much provincial, yes, we sponsored absolutely as a line item, but provincially and federally, like I know when I was with the RDA, COA swooped in with refrigeration and renovations to the curling club, the P's, and I'd be guessing if I said it was $500,000 that they probably invested 20 years ago now, because I've been on council for 11, and that goes back 5 years before that. So the money's in the pockets of money in terms of, because again, it fits I'll use Andre's terminology, envelope, it fits the envelope of economic development and tourism. So that's why a COA can look at recreation facilities.
Province did put 500,000, I believe, into this
The new roofs.
new roof.
Yes, they did.
Where'd the rest of the money come from?
We gave,
We were spending 1.2, I think.
Yeah, we increased our grant, and I think they were looking for some more from Future. That's not from Future.
They've all been funded.
yes,
You know, how much did your trust put on?
off the top of my head, no. But they,
Not a fair question for you, Sharon, I'm sorry, I thought.
no, I don't know, but they fund every year, and I mean, we have to put in a capital plan for the next 4 years, and then it's, what the priorities are.
So do we want to establish a joint committee to do a scope of work and bring it back to us? Or not?
It's a step forward.
Well, it's better.
I want to see the scope of work. Anything that touches that old building, I don't want to have anything to do with it. If we want to talk about building a new building and seeing how we can better service our residents, I'm for that.
So we could have
It's already fixed.
We could have Church Mountain Park Board create the scope of work with the assistance of municipal staff.
Well, we want municipal staff involved in this process.
Agreed.
So that's what we're gonna ask? People good?
Yeah.
Okay, move on. Okay. 9.7. Summer agenda plan. That'll change everything.
Thanks,
But
guys.
This is what we have today.
This guy.
Well, we knew it this morning.
So we just thought it would be, we haven't done one of these in a while now, I think we missed the spring. So I wanted to bring it forward, we're at the end of July now, so July probably doesn't, you see those things now. In August, so we have one meeting and that's next week. The uniform signage expansion options, I think we have to move to September now. So that'll be coming to COW in September. So that's the first item under community development and recreation for August. But you will see a report on the Housing Accelerator Fund next week. And depending on what happens on our in-camera workshop next week, we could potentially bring the personnel and salary and benefits review to you next week as well. If not, that'll be early September. And then there will also be the facility study award of tender coming to you next week. In September, we are looking at the COW meeting will be the uniform signage. One of the COW meetings will be uniform signage expansion options and timeline. The village plan review, so the results of the consultation, so the consultation report and the next steps will be coming to you in September. The South Shore Historic Preservation Society will be bringing some recommendations or their next steps forward or their plan for the Countway Mosier House.
Is that the on property?
Proposal, the on property, yeah. You will see a committee of the whole of the business and retention and expansion action plan. So that's a follow-up from the presentation you received this morning. You will see comfort center and the 72-hour policy option. So there'll be some discussion around comfort centers coming to you. Strategic planning workshop we talked about doing. A procurement policy update, cash flow reserve update, the budget revisions and update for this year. Melco fire protection options, so we still have to have a discussion around the options for that. You'll see a report on the well lending program expansion, some discussion around speed radar options. And then for workshops, we're looking at the traffic study coming back to you in September to talk about options and prioritization for that. And we'll also be having a discussion around wastewater development charges. So we have had some of that discussion. It needs to come back to you. One of the things that we also have to bring back that you haven't seen yet is if we're going to implement a charge, we need a charge area. Where is it going to apply? So you'll see those boundaries in the charge areas coming back to you in the discussion. So that's what we're looking at for July, August, and September. And then probably the first or second meeting in September, I'll bring this back. That'll take us through to the fall, and that'll be, part of our strategic planning discussion as well.
Any questions, people?
The issue of the unopened roads, we talked about getting that on in September. I don't know where that would be.
I think there's an item for next week, is it, or?
No, well, so I'm meeting with Nick this afternoon regarding just that mapping exercise we can be on for a while. So we'll be approaching the province with those to see exactly what we need to do to get on. Sorry, the province to transition to our ownership.
We looked at the map last time. There was no distinction between what we already own and what the province.
That's part of this afternoon's discussion, just to get that clarified, so we know exactly who.
But I thought you'd already heard from the province.
No, we've heard back from the province on the Otter Road, on Open Road, Otter Point, sorry, on Open Road. But all the others will be selling them a map and say, okay, these are the ones we're interested in, these are the ones that you currently own, these are the ones we currently own. How do we go about obtaining?
And you're doing that this afternoon.
That's something else.
I'd like to see the map for just the province.
Well,
We can certainly should have done this.
Andre,
I think Council Wells brought up sidewalks on Chester Common School. And I think staff were gonna go away and just, I don't think they were gonna go out, they were just gonna do some estimates
yeah,
on the costs.
in sections or whatever.
I don't think it's a big, I don't think it's an elaborate report, but it'd be nice if we could get that, so that with enough time that we can sort of think about it a bit, because, a few months later, we're gonna be talking about it, and that might be nice to
Yeah.
get it in the hopper.
Okay. Streetlight discussion.
All right, so go down and, okay, let me back up. All right, somehow successfully I've avoided dealing with streetlights up until a couple of weeks ago. I don't know how it happened. Good fortune, I guess. But I did have in my area a resident that came to our office here asking if an additional streetlight could be put on his road. And our response was to give my contact information to contact me about a streetlight, which I find extremely interesting, as I know nothing about streetlights.
Man.
And I'm not a staff person here. But it's part of, I guess, our process, because every area is a jumbled mess and our staff don't have a clear process for dealing with streetlights. So anyways, then I ended up having to come back and interview a number of staff and make calls and try to get this fellow's request dealt with. But we have, in my dealings in this matter, I actually sat in Tim's office trying to gather information about how we actually administer the streetlights there, which is, I think, also quite mysterious even to him. this has been a long-standing problem, and it's, I don't know why there's a reluctance for us to address it from a policy standpoint. It's very difficult to administer, and the performance that we give the public, if there are requests, is extremely poor because, they come to me, for example, with the first streetlight guys, what do I know? And I'd like for us to come up with, there's gotta be some way to harmonize this system. And I know that some are by area rates and some are by incident and flat rates, and there's all different methods, but there's gotta be, I would like for this council to just make the request to staff to see if our staff are highly trained, intelligent staff, if they can come up with a way that harmonizes this into a process that if somebody wants a street light, it's very clear on how it actually happens.
And how it gets paid for.
And how it gets paid for, more importantly, and that shouldn't be an unreasonable request. I don't.
All I can say is that if we went through this during the strategic plan process, we debated it for quite some time, and we came to a conclusion that we did not want to happen. So let's cast.
I don't want to on that.
I did.
I want to go down that road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with the way it is now. Matter of fact, I prefer it. And I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know if the person who asked you whether it was on a road that's already has streetlights. I mean, in my district, it's every second pole. I mean, that is the basic policy on the roads that it's on.
That written policy, we have something.
It's not a written policy, it just is. But if they call me and can explain to me why I would need another one, because the one that's on every second pole is up in the damn woods and I can't get anybody to cut the trees and so it's useless, then I'd consider it. Also, every second pole, somebody calls me because they can't sleep at night because it's shining in their damn eyes. Well, then I have to come to some conclusion politically, whether it makes sense to take that particular one out. And that's stuff that the staff can't do.
Should streetlights be political?
Well, everything I know of is.
No, not everything.
I had another person call me not so awful long ago, the staff, I don't have staff would have dealt with it. They didn't want the street light, they didn't want to pay for it. Well, they live on a street where there are street lights and everybody on the street pays for them. They wanted to take it out and then for them not to have to pay taxes anymore because they felt the only person that needed the street light was their neighbor who they didn't like. So it has, that's what I told them they're paying for it whether I take it out or not.
My district has them on every second pole, and I won't take them down for anybody. If they bother them, I'll get the light power company to move them.
Well, just adjust the angle.
Every
Yes,
second pole, there's a rate for the whole community, everybody pays equal. That's how much.
But yours is different. Your area is different than other areas.
Definitely it is, because I know for a fact, Blanford,
Does that make any
don't
sense?
want.
Yeah, and then in my district, there's private roads. Well, we don't put them up private roads unless there's 3 or more houses.
Yeah.
And I have to be asked by somebody to do that. And then I need them, and in many cases, I've gotten them to do a petition. And you prove to me that it's acceptable to everybody, and then I'll install them and you're gonna pay.
Why don't you write that policy out so we all know what the policy is?
Well, because not everybody approaches it the same.
Well, I guess-
Some jobs just say no.
Pointing about.
Well, yeah, we need the buzzer.
Yeah.
First, from a government standpoint, I don't see, I'm an elected official as part of a body that makes decisions. So if somebody comes and a resident comes to the municipality and says, I want a street light, I don't really feel first that I, as a sole elected official, as part of a body that makes decisions, have the authority to say if that person should have a street light or not. That's not my decision, and it's not your decision, as far as I know.
As long as they're up there, no, but if it's causing grief or if it's not serving the purpose, then I can deal with that.
Well, that shouldn't be you. It should be something that's enshrined in policy and staff deals with. Because that they're operating on a policy that has been agreed upon by an elected body. But instead, you know, I have to tell this guy if he gets street light or not. Well, why should that be my decision to make? Like, it either conforms to our policy or it does not. And that would be a policy of our council, not of Andre Vino. Am I wrong? Or
Makes sense to me, Andre. I've heard this many times around this table, and I would give the will council to stay with what we've got.
So what I've been informed to do, somebody asked to fire one of the streetlights, but you can't just put one up. So a petition was sent out to the people on that road, and the majority did not want streetlights, so therefore that person didn't get the street.
And we have other policies like that, like road naming and other things that, you know, we have a reason, when we reach it to an area of influence, and our staff coordinate that, and then it happens, and that's a policy that we endorse as a council. Why can't we put that in place? And if there are certain areas that have dense streetlights like Chester Basin, and there are places that don't, like Blanford, that's fine. We can make that in our policy. We can just please get a policy. So at least somebody can follow along, like, honestly. I've been here for 10 years, and I don't know what it is.
Why wouldn't we write a policy? I don't disagree on it. This is not one. Write the policy and let the district adopt the policy if they want. That doesn't have to be for the whole municipality. My district has lights on every second pole. I don't want to change it. They voted, they had a petition, they wanted, but they had a policy in place that the Blanford district
If you want to draw like your district, fine.
you could do it that way.
No, I think you need the policy to say any district in the municipality, not just your district,
Why?
because
What am I gonna do in my district when we already have
Well, your district, says you only have them at the intersection.
so only have them at the intersection, but maybe the majority will come.
I
forward
have
and
parts
say
of
that
Chester
I
Grant
like
that
them on
aren't
every
served
second pole.
because they don't care.
We can have a policy with a map or zones, like, it doesn't have to be just like written by district, but I mean, it's not, you can have one policy and then show a map and say, this is how we do it in these areas. We're not inventing like something radical.
sometimes the problem with that may be, it's just that someone has to pay for it.
Somebody has to pay. for it.
And when you take it one area wants 30 streetlights or 50, and the rest of them don't, they don't want to pay for the streetlights, that's where they want.
So where do I find the policy for district number 3, Mr. Ward?
I don't have.
So what do I tell someone from a common, they call me, I want street lights?
It's a general practice that we put streetlights on every second pole. We make exceptions in intersections where there is an obvious safety concern.
And who pays for it?
The district, in the district that has them. So, and the thing is some districts don't have them in the same fashion.
Example would be, my District 7 has them at intersections. Or,
But you don't have them down the main road.
no, not on the main road at all, say where a road comes onto the number 14, Canaan Road has a light. All of the roads that are coming on 14 would have a light.
Who pays for that light?
Everybody in
The district,
District 7 pays for those lights.
Yeah.
Collectively.
And that's only been in the last 4 years, maybe?
Oh, no, they've been there a long time.
Oh, okay, I thought I remember it coming back recently, where then an area raised was imposed on the entire district, and it was like, 1/10 of 1 penny or whatever.
Well, it's not very much.
Not very much.
It's on the tax bill though, and
Oh, it had to be on the tax.
I
bill.
want
It's not very
someone to
much.
tell me what the policy is for District 3, so I can tell people.
Or Floyd's district.
well, I know what it is in my district, I don't.
That doesn't help me at all. Doesn't help me at all.
Can
I have no
you show me
regard.
where it is so that I can read it?
But it isn't written down in the
Just in your head.
I can tell you what it is though.
So maybe Floyd's petition, ask him.
I don't know if it still has it, within the 80s, there was a petition taken to every second pole and paid for by the district, and I think it's around 6 cents, everyone pays for streetlights, and they have 2 homes on a private road, they have lights.
Man, I was doing jumps on my sweet BMX back in those days. I didn't carry anything.
You tell us.
Okay, maybe I can shed some light on this situation. The first thing I'll say is if you decide to get streetlights, I've been at this since 2018, trying to get the streetlights finished in my district. and there's still 10 not done. So I'll just start with that.
That's Nova Scotia Power.
That's no Scotia County. But what I did, because I ran into the same problem, when I came, I didn't know the policy, and I was told that it's up to the district, so I assumed it was just on assessment. So what I did similar to Floyd, I put questionnaire, I costed it approximately at the time what it would cost from the estimates I got from Nova Scotia Power, and I said, this is the proposal, street light on every second pole from Martins River Bridge to Gold River Bridge. Would you prefer,
Side streets involved, or just a highway?
pardon me?
Just the main highway.
Just the main line, because I got those questions, right? So I decided at that point, instead of, because I went down every road like Floyd did, and it was crazy, so I thought everybody uses the main highway, that's what I concentrated on. So when I did that, I didn't know that you could do it either flat rate or on the assessment. So that was my decision. So basically, I told people what it would cost, and from the feedback I got, I thought, I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and I did it on, I was gonna do it on a flat rate. Now, having said that, when I came to finance and asked them, it was, their heads were exploding because they showed me how there were like 85 different rates for different districts, and I mean, it's not a nightmare for us, it's a nightmare for them guys.
So that's
Nightmare for us.
So all I'm asking,
Yeah.
we could all have like this sharing circle here where we talk about all the different ways we do streetlights. But all I'm asking is if we can go back to staff and ask them if they can try to put together a policy and where possible, harmonize it and maybe even construct a process so that if somebody does march in the doors here and say, I need a streetlight, they don't give my business card out and say, call this guy. Because I don't know anything about streetlights.
But I've done that. I had the fire department come to me, Andre, and say, these are intersections that we've identified that are dangerous when we haul them for our truck. Can we get streetlights there? So I put 4 streetlights. I just did that on my.
I don't want to do sharing circle. I just want to,
Sharon circle.
I just want policy.
Okay.
I wanna know what the policy is. for District Three,
Right.
please.
I
You
don't.
gotta make an executive decision from time to
I
time.
need a policy for District Three for streetlights, please.
We do it for a bunch of us. Can't we just do it for
Do
everybody?
we care if they do a general policy?
I can't wait, I can't wait for that report to come back.
That's the question. You do a general policy, does that mean that every district has to adopt to that policy?
I think that-
That's the problem.
Yes, I think the policy has to be really open-ended, because it has to be, you should be able to do it on assessment or on just per house.
I did it flat rate
That's
because
right.
it's a service, and that's the way I did.
That's it, those are options you can choose.
Flat rate,
So in other words, basically what I said,
I'm happy with it.
Doesn't matter.
I don't have any trouble with
it doesn't matter if your house is assessed at 400,000
how's
or
it,
100,000.
how's it paid for, how's it paid for in Chester?
I would have to look at that, it's
I think it's-
different
I
for
think-
each area,
I think
and it's
that I can
sometimes
just-
different with.
Oh, the village looks at it.
That's my own question. I
Village
know
looks at
The village
it.
looks
they
at
don't
it.
look after all of District Three. but
No, just the village.
So I'm more concerned with outside the
Yeah.
village
Maybe we can get
commission.
them a contract with them to do the
So-
whole thing.
Can I jump in for one
Let Karen speak for a minute.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. We were aware, obviously, that this conversation was coming to council, and we have gone in the past, and so I think when Malcolm was here, we asked for a uniform policy that would apply in a uniform charge process. Council had no will to do that at the time, and I think I shared that with you, that there was no will to do that, there was no direction. In fact, staff was told not to do a policy. So I have asked staff since then, and since the conversation we had, to try to work with what we know from finance and from public works in developing a policy that would probably be not a policy. I misspoke, a procedure that could be followed for each district that sort of outlines, okay, in District 3, this is what we do, we go right to the counselor, and that, because that is sort of the process of, if there's a request, sometimes it does go right to the counselor.
Why?
But
Why is that
sometimes-
something that we want?
Well, if they want a swimming pool or a new playground piece up in the Croft Road, they come ask me.
Yeah, but you don't give it to them, you bring it
No.
here.
Well, I find out.
That's the difference, Alan.
Well,
Well, I think too, you gotta look at it, it's a light, it's not a capital project of $2 million.
Well, that's what
And it's not costing any other district any money, just the one I'm dealing with.
So what I have asked staff to do is to try and sort of map that out and map out the charge areas so that it's clearer for all of staff what the charge process is for each individual district. And for some districts, I think it's even district, like the charge is not the same.
Any policy
consistently
that
throughout
involves
the
me, outside of being a policymaker, I will reject.
Yeah, so we're not bringing a policy forward, we're bringing forward a procedure manual that staff can.
Any
can
procedure
use.
that involves me outside of being a policymaker, I will reject.
Yeah.
My job is not to tell people if they can have a street light or not.
Can I find out?
Tina's next.
Oh, sorry, thanks, so just to be able to share it on, right?
I love sharing.
Sharing, sir?
I'm not
Karen.
sure how it was arrived at in my district, but I believe in my district, the area of impact are the residents who pay. So I, in Aldersville, don't receive any item on my tax bill for the streetlights in my district. So the area of impact just happened to be in the Cross area. So the area of impact would go probably down to the fire department, down past the New Ross School, up the Forties Road at a small distance, and down over the hill. So that area of impact are the only residents that receive a tax bill with a streetlight area right on it. And so that being said, I just wanted to mention that for sharing. And secondly, just so Derek is aware, maybe some other people, I was one of the counselors, certainly from my time of starting here and including today, I would like some continuity, some consistency, some uniformity, whatever the words might be. So Tara, when you mentioned that around when Malcolm was here and kind of some movement to look in the direction of a uniform streetlight policy, and I was never ever one to say stop or don't continue. I'm only one person, but I just wanted to make that clear for fellow counselors and for the public, because, and I haven't used this for a long time, I used to use it every other meeting, but consistency of decision making. Fairness of decision making, consistency is very important to me, and I think that's the only thing that we can look to for me for streetlight stuff. We need to, because I did it when I, was on council 50 years ago, doesn't mean maybe we shouldn't look to something that might be new and a change. So, thank you. Next.
Why don't you put together what you consider to be the
Not what I want.
policy that we use in each district at the moment?
You're speaking to me?
No, I'm speaking to
Who are you
Derek.
looking at?
You
He's looking at you with this eye, looking at there with that.
I mean, my only suggestion is that it seems to me that we have areas of density. Chester Basin, Alberts area,
Western
Western Shore, that basically you're doing it every other pole.
Yeah.
And to me, if you're in an area where it's every other pole, it wouldn't be that hard to imagine how you guys could all manage that in a very similar way. And then there's other areas that don't have that are by demand or at intersections or whatever, and they would have another scenario, but I don't know why we need like 14 different scenarios to manage there's really two cases here. Either dense or it's not dense. And like, why can't we come up with some sort of strategy to manage them both?
There are private subdivisions, there's dangerous intersections, there's
Well, I think, Margaret, there's really only two.
people who
Reasons
don't
here.
like it in front of their
You just need to figure out either you're gonna pay it on an area rate, on a rate, or a flat rate. I don't think the question is where the lights are. I think the biggest issue for staff, is that right? That's,
No, it's
that's-
all of it, I
No,
think, right now, yeah, it's
Pardon me?
different, it is not consistently
No,
on
but
every
that-
other pole,
exactly.
so. And it's not consistent on the charge methodology.
right.
Because I can just say that there's those people that like to see the stars and they say that
I got one
lights,
in my area.
lights will prevent that.
Yeah.
But it also makes sense to me if you have streetlights going from Martin's River through to Chester Basin, and then you stop at Middle River Road, no streetlights until you get to Chester again, like you got that section where, which is.
Well, they don't want to.
If one person in particular, if I didn't have to pick this from there, came to me and asked me for a street light, I tell them that the car will put them in, you pay for them.
Well, that's what, is this guy wanting to be shared or on the street?
Well, I get all kinds of people who want to.
Yeah,
And
Just
work
tell
thing
them,
is
forget
different
it.
things.
But if you're a community,
The one thing
resident,
is, it's crazy.
then you need to come up with a way to put them in and put it.
But
And
what if one person wants to light?
tell them to put it in and pay for it. Well,
Yeah.
And if one person wants to change the name on their road, we don't just do that, we have a process to manage it. You know, I just don't see, like, we got smart people, we have legal staff, we have, or legal retained people. You know, we've got, we're, you know, we're equipped to handle this, I believe in us, we can do it. We can manage these streetlights.
and the public, do what they want.
Can I ask one more question? Do you have someone in staff advise me, someone asking for a street light in the comments? A, are they eligible under policy? B, how is it paid for?
Yeah, so we don't have a policy. And so what we would say right now is talk to your counselor.
Yeah, I know you're,
And
Yeah,
then
so
the
we
person
can-
comes back again.
he's not the only one who gets phone calls, by the way.
I know, but
I don't.
I don't either.
Well, that's good. You guys are all full with lights.
All flexible.
You've been putting lights up for 40 years.
Yeah, and I'm not, I don't ever have an issue with it.
No, because everybody has
I
a
mean,
light.
technology's up to you.
Having a street light that focuses on the street is different than having a street light that you want in your yard.
If
If you want a street light in your yard, that's, you pay for that.
It's not like-
Is that what that guy wants, one in his yard?
Anyway, we're not making any progress,
I
people.
think what I can say right now is that I'm not hearing that, unless I'm hearing wrong, I think we would continue with the process of trying to work with each individual counselor to
No,
document
no,
their
That's not what you've
process.
heard.
To document their process, I hadn't heard that.
Just
there
because
were-
Al's
there
next
was
to you
a
doesn't mean
uniform
that's,
policy.
would you always hear what he said?
Then I guess I would ask for a motion from council
I'll
to
move that
give
we-
us direction.
We direct staff to come up with some sort of semblance of a streetlight policy. And how we administer requests and how we fund them.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd like to ask staff before you do that, is that something that you're able to do? Pardon me?
We are able to do it.
We are able to do it.
Okay, of course.
Discussion.
Another question. So if they come up with a process, so what happens to Floyd and what happens to Alan, what happens to me? Are we grandfathered in?
We're not gonna take your lights away, we just wanna know if somebody
So-
comes along that wants a light.
So if you want
what
to
we
set
do
a
with them.
policy
But there's a
moving forward,
multitude of different methods, that's all.
if you want a policy moving forward, I'm all fine with that.
Yes,
Yes, going
Yes.
There
forward.
you go,
That would make.
that's fine. Yeah,
please.
All those in favor?
there you go. I'm grandfathered in.
Good luck with it.
That took 10 years, that was 10 years.
Listen, but you know,
We haven't got the policy.
Oh, we haven't adopted it yet.
streetlights are amazing. You wanna talk streetlights, I'll talk streetlights.
Okay, people. Thank you for David Gates Municipal University for graduating high school student attending university. That was very nice.
I would like to speak on that, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
No,
It was so refreshing to see, I presented actually this award to her. And the letter's great, but the thing that really struck me about the letter is it was handwritten. Okay, it wasn't typed. You know, it's easy to type, the kids today, not just kids, anybody, sending mail, it's an email. I just thought, man, this is great, she took the time to actually physically handwritten letter. So that meant a lot to me, actually. She's a sweet girl, and I just like to say that, and if you read the last letter, it said, once again, I am beyond thankful for your kind consideration and financial support. I will never forget it. So, very nice.
She could have Chat GPT to write that. Never know, you don't.
Tina,
We actually don't have anything to do with this, right? Okay, the school makes a decision, right? So, yeah, just wanted to ask. clarification.
Well, we hit, the
We
money
present-
came from the municipality.
We present, they make the decision.
They make the decision,
Yeah, yeah.
Finance, and she made
Oh, yeah, the financial,
finances.
oh, it's a big impact.
But to go back to that, we could make that decision if we chose, it's just that we
We're not on the ground.
No, no, so
We give it to the school to do that
Well,
because
they're-
they know.
Absolutely.
I know who deserves to do that.
Oh, goodness, yeah, no.
Okay, 10.3, Marriott's Cove emergency exit.
You're not telling me to.
Did I read 10.2? What was
Mildred.
10.2?
Email from the Mildred writer.
Oh, well, that's.
No, no, you're
That's all
right.
on camera. We're gonna go back to the camera.
10.2?
No, no,
Yeah.
no,
Which one?
Mildred writer.
Okay, we're gonna check how it's busy.
I did respond to this one, and I actually am in the process of trying to set up a meeting with RCMP, Department of Transportation, and the MLA to have a discussion around this. So I will let you know hopefully next week how that discussion goes, but we're looking to try and get some measures in place.
To control the traffic.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be speeds, because what we're hearing is actually is more volume of traffic and not speed, it's volume of traffic that is the concern, but we'll have
The
that.
speed is also a real factor.
Well, that's the only thing you can address, the volumes
Well, you can put some controls in so people can get in and out of their driveways and then out of their businesses without risking their lives. There's no, people are treating it like the 103, it's not.
But
I
how
think
do
it's
they,
gonna be up to Department of Transportation and the RCMP from an enforcement basis, and Department of Transportation in terms of, is there anything they can do for traffic?
I don't understand that if there's so much traffic, how speed? It's just certain parts of the day that they're speeding, because I mean, it's bumper to bumper from what I hear, is that?
It's better now, that they put some barricades in place, they got some of the bad spots fixed and the flow traffic.
They're trying.
Yeah.
No one's suggesting otherwise. It's
But
just-
anyway, you're gonna meet the Maddies and see if we can afford that.
You can throw a few hot dog stands along the way.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe they'll stop that. Anyway, the Marriott's Cove emergency exit, and I'll just say this came up at this same issue came up at Remo, was last week we met. And we're gonna do a study and determine what the next steps are all across Wilbraham.
Okay, thank you, that would be great, because
We
Maybe-
recognize it's an issue.
all partners may not know what the exits are in case of emergency. And I guess just the other thing, for the public, we're well aware of Remo and what happens in an emergency, but I don't think the general public does, and a lot of it is communication. I really think it would be great to have one central number where anybody could call to get information or report something. Maybe when, I know you'll be doing a debriefing, probably with Reno, that's pretty typical, and maybe something like that could be brought up. I think people are understanding, but just not knowing,
Yeah,
was a big issue.
I know, but just to say, the phone people, the volume of calls is all but unmanageable, no matter how many people are working.
And depending on the emergency, the calls might be concerning Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, they might be Nova Scotia Power, if it's power outages, it's just hard to have a central number when there's so many different agencies involved, but
That's
I can
true.
bring it up.
There could be a message though on a machine advising people to call
Yeah,
this number
If it's
for
this,
this
if it's
thing.
that, it's something.
That, or there was no communication that I heard on the local
Yeah.
radio station. So people kind of felt in the dark. They all realized that they can't be the first priority, that there was a lot of damage, but just, those issues may
But
help.
this whole issue of emergency exits just came up last week, and we're gonna hire some people to.
Sharon, can I just ask, like,
Derek has sent.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We know how long indefinite is for the, like, 7 and 8, is it a bridge that we're dealing with between 7 and 8?
Yeah.
And then is it a week, a month, a year before it's fixed?
We don't know what indefinite is. They don't know at this moment.
Because it's gonna do a lot of damage to our roads.
I think it's more than a week,
Yeah.
I think it's less than a year.
Yeah.
That's kind of the broad, but that is the broad Like, it just depends on the extent of the damage, I think, but, I best guess right now is sounding like a month or two, but that's, I don't know if that's, not officially, so.
When the washout happened at the end of Valley Road, and they had to shut the number 3 down, and the big trucks had to go through the village, that was problematic.
Yes.
I just don't know how you plan for something like that, but there has to be some way we could have some control over that detour into the village with those big 18-wheelers, man.
I don't know. Some things that are very difficult.
I know.
I think there's very few options at that point, right? Like, and there's other issues that they're looking at and keeping an eye on. So Goat Lake, the bridge over Goat Lake, they've already identified that as knowing that that's a concern and a priority. So they're doing inspections on a regular basis on not only that bridge, but all of the bridges. So they're monitoring all of those right now. But I think the options are limited in terms of alternative, especially when you had going through the village, right? You can't send them up through the valley necessarily. So
Well,
the options were fairly limited on that one.
you couldn't get up Newers Road, you couldn't get up Windsor Road, and what are you gonna do?
But the damage to somewhere around infrastructure, the province should pony up.
Well, there's emergency money that we're gonna be making application for, but at this point, we just don't have it all sorted out.
And that Goat Lake Bridge with all that extra traffic on it.
But yeah, I want to ask you, I just read on Facebook, they made an exit to the 103 from Middle River Road, is that what you
Yeah,
did?
there used to be an existing road there, but it was only access for emergency vehicles, so
Okay,
Public Works have made it sufficient enough for people, the local residents to exit in and out. It's not,
it's like exit 9.5, I call it North Shore. I mean, it's not
well,
official.
it's an exit that they can get out, because otherwise they would have been landlocked, and that's.
So they're all.
I think some of those projects were already in the works because of the wildfires and the discussions around subdivisions and roads that only have one way in or out. And so they're looking at what their options are, and it's not an option in every situation from what I understand. So it was an option there in particular because there was a third lane and all of that kind of stuff, and it makes the passage so that they can make safe passage in there and safe ingress and egress, but it's not possible in every situation where those types of exits happen. So it's a case by case basis, but they were already looking at those, and that's why they were able to do that, I think, relatively quick.
Yeah. And like I said, when we discussed this the other week at Remo about mapping out where the emergency exit possibilities and routes, it was because the fires had nothing to do with this disaster.
So what happens if that Goat Lake Bridge goes kaput? What's the alternate plan then?
That would be up to DPW, they would have to close the road, and I'm not sure if there's an alternative, they would look at a I don't know what but they are aware of the situation, and they do know that it's a critical piece of infrastructure, and there's more than just that one, it's a critical.
Yeah, I know, I just worried about that.
Yeah, they are aware.
Like, any way we can divert some of that, not we, I've been thinking about some of that heavy transports, keep them away from that road, send them through the valley or something. I mean,
Not aware that they are, but it's.
anyway,
Yeah. Everybody's trying. Okay, right on to 11.1, or am I not? Request for decision for financial information service reduction in taxes. I'll start that.
Hey, Tim, long time no see.
Yeah, feels like it's been ages. So hopefully I brought a nice boring item for you here. So this is a request for reduction of taxes under policy P23, so to deal with a house fire that occurred on February 7th. At the property at 3072 Highway 3 in East Chester, had a structure fire on February 7th. We've received a request from the owner and subsequently a revised opinion of value from PVSC. The value assessed after the fire is now at 74,400, down from previously 115,100. Also a revised opinion of the previous year's assessed value because the fire occurred before the start of the year. I want to give one quick update. I realized after this was added to the agenda that I added the wrong rate in one of the spots. So the number is slightly changed, but it's substantially pretty much the same. The total reduction I'm requesting approval for is $414.56. And that change is due to an error made on the tax rate in the 23-24 item. So what I'm requesting today is that you approve reduction of taxes due to this fire for $414.56.
We want to make that 14?
414.56, yeah.
Sound good?
Great, more pens.
Seconder,
Second.
discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Nick. Am I on to that piece of correspondence plus 9.5 on the going camera?
You are.